Hello.
Hi, Clement.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Clement. How are you?
Good, Annie. Thank you.
Pleasure to put a face to the name finally.
Yes, same. Nice to meet
Very
you
good.
virtually.
Thank you. Likewise. So I think we can start. First of all, I would like to thank the panelists for accepting the invitation to this webinar, and thanks to the audience with us today, and hopefully the viewers on YouTube now and in the recorded session. Today, this is the fifth webinar in a series of 5 that is organized by the Al-Kindi Society of Engineers in partnership with the Iraqi Embassy in London and with the support of UNESCO and their funding partners. This event is focusing on the 5th prize winning team in the international competition for the redesign of the Grand Al-Nouri Mosque complex in Mosul. And with that, we will have Mr. Clement to present the design of the project. And we also have Mr. Samir, who will, if I may ask him a question first on how the team got to hear about the competition and how the team was put together. Before we allow Mr. Clement to present, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. It's a great opportunity. Thank you. Many thanks for Al-Kindi and for UNESCO and for Abu Dhabi, of course. In fact, this competition, we heard about it through a friend of ours, Fabrice Merigi, who had this great idea of inviting us to compete. And he gathered all the team. Clement, also other teams that probably Clement will highlight in his presentation. But we had different teams located in different continents, I would say. I'm in Canada, and of course, most of the team were in France, between Marseille and Paris. And another architect was in Dubai, and a lady, archaeologist, Helen, was in Turkey. So we worked together in a very systematic and organized way to really, like workshops every week, to really put together this competition. So thanks to Fabrice, who really initiated this competition. And
Excellent.
stayed with us until the end.
That's fantastic. And with that, Mr. Clement, if you want to try and share your screen.
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. Let me. Let me know if you see my screen.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much for this invitation. As Samir mentioned, we actually decided that the project is actually a group project. And it was almost as important as a result than the process. And that's how we envisioned this project to be almost like a cultural group therapy, where we all together managed to kind of coordinate the way we were thinking about the future of this country. It has been a high pleasure and extreme intense celebration of questions that we have been raising. And for us, whether we will win or not, we were happy, obviously, more than happy to be shortlisted as the 5th. But the process and the team is now a group of research that we want to experiment in different countries. There is a huge list, and I'm going to represent the team leader, but indeed we did it as a collective group. And I would like to thank all together the group of the project. This is super important to question the future of this project, not only in terms of architecture, but in terms of urbanity. And we were completely fascinated by the simplicity and the organic texture of this urbanity that we can see. And our project was trying to avoid any sign of power on top of a power, but more to kind of coordinate the meaning of what a city as an urban strategy could be, and to consider the future of the mosque as a metaphor, but also as something that is going to represent the power of time. At the beginning, we did this sketch, and the way I was trying to resolve it was trying to question the meaning of the void in order to find meaning to the mass. And we found out, as simple as that, that the urban technique or the urban texture of the city is more important by trying to control the void in order to better control the massing. So our strategy was to simply consider the idea that we could have strong figure, urban figure that will coordinate the city with the void. Almost like, as you can see in this picture, where you see a lot of patio typologies and some simple figures, on top of which you have the city and the people let the architecture grow. And that has kind of really strongly impact our thinking, because at some point we didn't want to do a master plan. We didn't want to do a site plan. We don't want to do an authoritarian plan. Our strategy of the design is simply to propose to continue the city to grow and to implement only a certain structure in relation to the public space and or the void or the unbuilt. So we were designing the unbuilt to better plan the built. And that was our strategy. As you can see in this floor plan, we see the way the red implement the kind of existing structure to be kept, and the way the structure of the city is almost an organic, yet almost almost like antique modernity. And that's something we were really fascinated in terms of designing, is to propose the void as important as the massing, and this shows the imbrication of a texture that kind of embrace the history of the site. This is obviously the color code of the different program, because we had to implement the school, the sport, the art, the center, and the way the mosque is kind of creating an urban square almost. And that's where the religious space is step by step trying to embed a relationship with the city. And the site plan, we show it here, but somehow our texture is super shiny, but we wish it could be looking older, in kind of a fact that the texture of the urban city can grow. And we were proposing to find a structural local product without trying to make a forced shape or a forced technology within something we don't know. Those elevations are showing the relationship between the built and the unbuilt, and the way there's this kind of simple line where we protect ourselves from the sun, but also try to embrace the relationship with this reference point of the mosque. Those are some images that integrate the past and the future in a in a simple manner, and we wanted some kind of rigorousness into the architecture, but also more important to let the city grow and have a kind of relationship to modernity, not in terms of showing the modernity, but embracing and integrating the modernity. And that was super important for us. We didn't want to highlight the fact that there is a different time zone, but more of a kind of urban strategy that show a polite approach, but also something extremely timeless. And that's the future of this site, we think. Those are some images of the different patio and the way we try to integrate the architecture and the relationship to the mosque in the past. And I show again this drawing because it's kind of really an urban strategy we wanted to integrate with the mosque. Now, when we talk about the mosque, we found out that we could maybe generate a technology that could recollect all of the pieces that were gathered somewhere, that were the leftovers that the UNESCO were storing in a building next to the site. And with the technology we developed with Econem from Yves Ubelman, that is also part of our team, we had the idea that we could kind of maybe recollect the different pieces in its perfect shape, almost like if time had frozen the leftover of the piece of the original mosque. And our strategy was to embed those different components into a new concrete layer, and that the actual overall footprint of the mosque will be simple, the ghost volume. And you can see here in this image the way we will somehow, from a simple scientific technology, three-dimensionally position the different pieces left in space. It's like freezing history. It's like to be extremely honest with time and to have the person that is going to the mosque to simply have a feeling of what used to be the mosque. So it's almost like a balance. We treat that equivalence, the future and the past. And that was super important in the concept we had. And we work with engineer Ricciotti with the idea that the different components of the fragments, we could kind of have a simple layer with some wood to support the different components of the monument that was recovered into the perfect three-dimensional space. And the concrete will kind of freeze the positioning of the fragments into the exact original position. Obviously, we had to also consider the relationship to the main building that was left, and we worked with a certain series of concrete along which we could kind of protect and have an existing strategy of recovering this. Those images are showing how we were treating the exterior envelope. Architecturally, I was very fascinated by the idea of having the footprint of history. And our proposal here is simply to have a negative of the original ornamentation that was the mosque having. So it's almost preparing the future of the mosque as a photography of history and represent time. The building was representing time. And also we treated the minaret as a strategy to bring light, but also to naturally ventilate. And our proposal was a simple volume embracing time and kind of trying to reconnect the idea that modernity is not only about complex structure and complicated roof, but more of the essence of a project. And our essence here was to gather the history of the mosque into a future positive approach that is going to relate time. Our project is just to represent time. And that was super interesting for us. This image is also dealing with the kind of natural light we wanted to propose on the roof to support the presence of the different fragments of the mosque. And this image is looking at the embedding of the urban fabric with the mosque together. And I will finish, and obviously Samir, you will help me to continue the discussion, but I did a very short presentation of a long time effort, but we are very pleased to have won this 5th prize, apart from the idea of this project being a process more than a result.
Thank you very much for this interesting and very well presented design. With that, I would like to remind the audience that we have the question and answer facility, and we also have the ability to, for anybody who wishes to talk, to raise their hand, and we'll give them access to the microphone. With that, Mr. Samir, if you have any comments you would like to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Aval. I wish, I mean, this project for us was really an amazing opportunity to think about sustainability, to think about, as Clément amazingly explained, the past, the present, and the future. Because as we know, the whole Middle East now will sooner or later undergo a huge amount of restoration and reconstruction. And this initiative of the competition backed up by UNESCO is an amazing opportunity. I wished personally, I would say that I wished that the jury, once they have selected the 5 finalists, I wish they had a kind of Zoom meeting, giving the opportunity for every team to explain really the project, because sometimes the drawings are not enough to explain the depths of thinking, and also, more importantly, the issues that societies in Iraq, in Mosul, the actual society, how it will deal really with the reconstruction. We went through a lot of, I would say, a lot of pain to really understand the potential of these societies to reconstruct their past and their capabilities. And sustainability was really something very important for us. I mean, how these the reconstruction will be dealt with in terms of means, in terms of materiality, from where they will bring, like we could have done high-tech solutions, but we know very well that it's not possible. I mean, on a paper, you can do it, but in reality, this is not the case. So this is what I really regret, that we did not have the opportunity to really explain this. I'm not saying that, I mean, we are very happy to have this 5th prize, and that we are exhibited in Biennale, Venice Biennale. But for us, the real opportunity was really to continue and to really build on this competition for the future.
Thank you. So we have some questions from the audience, but I would like to start with some of my own questions. Mr. Samir, how much of your past experience related to heritage conservations in the Arab world and Arab cities influenced this design concepts? And also, a second part to that, how restricted were you because of the technology that you had decided to use as a project team?
Yes. I mean, what I did during these workshops is basically to highlight some aspects of our culture. I mean, the culture of the Middle East and in Iraq, in different parts of the Arab world. Because I've been working for 25 years in the Gulf, and I visited Iraq in Najaf. I visited a lot of countries which are now suffering from destruction, like Syria, like Yemen, and so on. So the overall experience I had during, especially as founder of Arcade, is to see and to build a team to really have a in-depth understanding of our culture. Yes, it was really amazing, but the team we gathered was amazing, really, because there was a lot of discussions about how far can we go in proposing solutions that will cost money, and how we are going to deal with the real issue, which is how to continue the urban fabric of Mosul, and how this project will be, will act as a transition between the different parts of the site, and allowing people to go from street to courtyards, especially that we have, as we know, we have extreme climate in Mosul. In summer, it's very hot, so shading and also allowing people to really rest and transit from one space, public, semi-public, and private, and especially the mosque, how to deal with the people going to the mosque. And I think Clément explained very well our approach to recollect or to reconstruct the mosque from scratch. And really, we had Econem, who had an amazing technology to do it. And Econem, they worked on the Grand Egyptian Museum in Egypt and on some big monuments. So we had an amazing team. And to be honest, we are very happy that we have been part of these winning teams.
Great. Question for Mr. Clément. Did you get the opportunity as a project team to consult with Iraqi historians, Iraqi architects, conservationists in Mosul prior to the submissions? Or is that something that you wish you had done?
Well, actually, as Samir has mentioned, we deeply have been through a research development, and in order to assess the design decision, we took a lot of time to process the knowledge and to try to kind of coordinate the way we will handle the question. And indeed, the research has been a theme, and we've been looking at and discussing and debating with local knowledge and local personalities that could involve us in the right decision. I think what is very important in the scheme is somehow to be as simple and honest to the idea that low tech is as important as high tech. And we wanted to use the different brains of the team to just provocate ourselves that we didn't want to do a shiny effort of very suspicious technologies that cannot sustain, but more of a kind of proposal that is controlling time and support local knowledge into the production of the future. We were more supportive of local interest than global interest.
Thank you. So I think that answers that question from the member of audience. I'm just trying to select the order of the questions to make it more flowing as a story. Here is a question for both of you, and I think for the project team as a whole. Would you apply again for a UNESCO-led project in Iraq as a competition or as a separate entry based on the current experience you've had and what feedback you could have from a lessons learned perspective?
The answer is yes. And the answer is yes, because it proposes the mirror of any society and provocate ourselves to make the right decision. And our group that we have created is willing to continue the ongoing research and to support a new adventure into new projects.
Yeah, I would like to add something to what Clément said, that we are now living a period of really reconstruction and rebuilding, and this should be done with researching our past, and we cannot just propose, as Clément said, shiny solutions that will not be realistic, but also most importantly, will not be in line with the spirit of the place. I mean, the genius loci is very important. How we can respect, propose a concept that is in respect of the traditions and people expectation, while also managing the means and the budgets and the timeline. So this is, but also creating some innovation in the way we can master all these elements all together. So yes, we look forward for other competitions, but hopefully next time we will be more listening to the teams before having a final judgment and so on.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to expand on that. And I see there is a question already about that. So it's very clear from the presentation that Clement beautifully did, and from the feedback that we've received from both of you now to the questions, that research and development and understanding the local context, be that from Mosul itself or from other Iraqi experiences that you've had or other Middle East experiences you've had. Research and development is a very key area. What, in your opinion, do you think were the main tenets of the jurors' criteria in assessing the entries? And I think one of the lessons that you would like to present, as I understood, is there needs to be more dialogue with entries before a decision is made. How do you propose that to happen within the framework of these international competitions, which I believe the Mosul competition was endorsed heavily by such international standards? Maybe Mr. Samir, you can start and
yes,
give us some feedback.
I will highlight the importance of research and R&D. And this is really something, I mean, yes, competitions are very important, inviting people to compete, but also we don't have to forget that solutions will not come out of the blues, you know, they have to come from base of research. And I mean, on a personal level, this is what I've been doing for at least 30 years, the creation of Arcade, Arab Research Center, for architecture and design of the environment. Arcade is acronym for all these terms, is really to understand the depths of our culture, but also to understand the future as how to prepare the future in a sustainable way, how to build using the local materials and the local technology that can be, as Clement said, low-tech. We don't need to have high-tech solutions, because the problem with these, with the competition is sometimes you look at the concept, but you don't understand that there is some urgency also of rebuilding. And this urgency comes also from the fact that people need to socially and economically need to reconstruct their life. And the importance of a mosque, especially Al-Nouri Mosque in Mosul, is so obvious. But also it will gather, it will if you want, group all the people around this project. So the importance of these projects is fundamental, and this is what we try to do in our base. The reason why I mentioned about once you have finalists is to have a Zoom meeting or Teams or whatever. It's very easy now these days. Is really to understand more in depth the work, and also to have maybe a better understanding of the drawings, because drawings sometimes they are not enough to explain what is the whole concept. This is my personal opinion.
Sure.
I don't know if Clement has something different, but to share with the public, with you and the public.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that when you do an open competition, you find the best way to digest and to represent the local understanding. But obviously it's a risk, even though the questioning and the actual architectural sense you want to promote cannot always be transmitted, as Samir said, by drawings. And maybe what could be done is to shortlist 5 or 10 and to have an interview or a presentation that reassess the essence of each project might be a good idea.
Thank you for that frank opinion, and it's a very useful lesson learned. I think that one can look at, certainly because I believe and I assume that more and more of these international competitions will be a commonplace on projects in the Middle East. And the question of how do you safeguard architectural heritage and areas of significant cultural importance, where you balance the need for international engagement as well as the local needs, will be very important. And no doubt there are a number of lessons to be learned, even for you as a project team. And with that, one of the questions is asking from an anonymous attendee, apologies, is you came as number 5 in the competition. What could you have done differently to win the project now that you have received the judges panel feedback and you've seen the other entries?
Clément?
It's a difficult question
Yes.
because me personally, I'm convinced of my conviction, and I'm not sure I would have changed so much, even though I would have wished to win. But it's better sometimes to fail and to feel better and strongly to have strong feelings about what you've done. So in that sense, I'm happy with what we've done. And when I'm comparing, I would say maybe I could have let some frivolity or some frivolous technology embrace with some umbrella or things that could kind of make it a bit funnier or sharper or shinier. But I think we didn't want, and the team decided not to be too provocative, because we think that it's possible to be strong by respecting the knowledge and the architectural balance. And so I guess me personally, I would not have changed, and I would not be capable to be doing a different way, because when you have a conviction, creating is to resist. And so we had to resist many things to do this.
Mm-hmm. If I may just ask a follow-up question to Clément on that, before moving to you, Mr. Samir. So do you believe that this resistance existed in the jury's mindset as well?
Well, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I cannot believe how many entries you got, but maybe you could tell us more about it.
Yeah, and tomorrow we will be hosting the senior project managers at UNESCO's Revive the Spirit of Mosul. And no doubt one of the questions we will pose to them is some of these points indeed. Mr. Samir,
Yes.
your opinion on the question as well, and your answer, please.
No, I mean, I'm 70 years old. So during almost 40 years of architecture, I've been through a lot of competitions. And I won some, I lost some internationally. So we know what is a competition. We know exactly that sometimes you have, I mean, most of the time you have to accept the decisions. But it's very difficult, and I've been teaching architecture for many, many years. And I've been into juries, and I know that the work of a juror in an architectural competition is not easy, because you have many people and everyone has his opinion. So you have to screen, and you have to really, I mean, you have criteria, of course, but it's very difficult also to stick to the criteria. So you have to to rely on your feelings and what you like, what you don't like. And that's why I mentioned that it's very important also to listen to the finalists, because at the end of the day, we had like 5 finalists for this competition, and other projects which also were honorable mention or something like that. So it's we respect the jury decision. We know it's not easy. We are very happy that we have been selected. We have been given this 5th prize. But also, in terms of the problem, in terms of implementing the whatever concept in reality, this will be also another challenge later on, because how the people will accept or will deal with the winning scheme is another issue. And we know that during many competitions, there has been some problems and some kind of compromises on this and that. But anyway, we are very happy that we have been given this opportunity, and we thank Abu Dhabi and UNESCO. And hopefully in other competition, there will be this kind of listening or I would say correcting some impressions that were given by the drawings and renderings, rather than also by the ideas inside all this, embedded in all this.
Sure. We have another follow-up question to you, Mr. Samir, which is asking, can the audience understand from your assessment or of your feedback that the process assessing these entries was somewhat rushed? And another question is, do you believe that if there was any political influence regarding the decision? For example, you mentioned there is a need to start reconstruction of the mosque, and could that have caused some undue pressures to accelerate this process?
I had a previous experience about Mosul and the Al-Nouri. 2 years ago, I think there was an article in Gulf News regarding the reconstruction of Al-Nouri. And I was interviewed by a journalist in UAE. And I sincerely said that reconstruction of Al-Nouri Mosque should be done also in a way that to remind people of what happened, really, the destruction, and really to enable people to, of course, again, to have a rebuilt mosque, but also to remember that the history, how history is, we don't have to forget the history. I mean, this is because most of my work at the time and still now is on museums and so on. So today, the jury of this competition has to face a huge amount of projects. And of course, if you look at the architecture itself, at the image of the architecture, you have very seductive images, that can be pleasing. But if you look more at the, as I mentioned before, at the sustainability and at the spirit of Mosul, I think as a group of architects and also archaeologists, because we had with us a lady, she's PhD in archaeology, and she's very knowledgeable about all this. So we had really to face a lot of issues. And we started with very seductive images, as Clément said. I mean, the images that can please any architects. Then we decided to restrain ourselves. So restraining ourselves was done because we understand the reality of what's happening today in Mosul and other parts of Iraq and Syria and so on. So destruction is the most. I mean, destruction is not only about the stone; it's about the people and their lives and how they used to perceive their environment and so on. So this is what we try to do. I mean, we all learn from the past, and we all learn from what happened. But definitely, the fact that we are given this opportunity to speak about it is very important for the future, not for us only, for future competitions, for future rebuilding programs, and so on, because there is a huge amount of things to be done.
Yeah, maybe I can add something if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
I think what we were, indeed, I'm also teaching in America, I'm teaching in Germany, in France, and also in different countries I had experience with. And I'm very interested in reflecting solutions that at first are highly primitive, and how can we dedicate our time to solutions that can last, and how can technology allow us not to be almost martyrs of the technology. And in that sense, I think the beauty of architecture is the architecture that can last. And the tragedy of the current century is to just be sophisticated until the end by just having an app that tells you when the window can open and close, and you're forced to just not even breathe natural air because the technology or the architect decided you to be in jail. So I'm more interested into this pragmatism and how the essence of the future of architecture can be beautiful, not only in its shiny aspect and its technological features, but more into the process of doing it. And I think our competition was trying to do something bottom to top, and to let everyone be part of the construction of the future of the mosque.
Thank you. We have one final question that I would like to take from Mr. Michael. Surname is missing. And it says, some have accused the whole process of excluding Iraqis and Iraqi experts. If I elaborate myself, I guess that's through the stringent competition criteria or by other means. What do you say about that, Mr. Clement, Mr. Samir?
Clement?
Well, I guess in our case, we have involved as many as we could, and we were completely open-minded. And in fact, we were lost if one of the family member was not part of the workshop. So it's more of a family effort and group. And we wanted to be more cosmopolitan and completely generous to different cultural, almost as a statement. The project is, we have a team that is huge and complete, and it's a statement. It cannot be a solely act of architecture, and it should not be about the architect, but about the architecture itself. And that's the point of our collective as part of our strategy for this project.
I would say that at the beginning, when Fabrice approached me, the concern was really to see if we can have an Iraqi architect, and really we were looking for some names. Personally, I knew Rifat Chadirji, I knew Ahmed Makkiya, these great names in Iraqi architecture. And I have friends who are Iraqi, but none of these architects were at the time available to really work with us. The best we could do is really to rely on our experience. And also Fabrice brought Helen Al-Mustafa, archaeologist also who has a lot of experience in archaeology. So we gathered the team very quickly, and really the time was not very enough to really go and have the leisure of bringing other people. But of course, we looked at this possibility of bringing someone from Iraq, but at that time it was not possible to outline someone. We understand the concern of Iraqi architects, and even when I discussed with a friend of mine, she's Iraqi architect teaching at AUB, she said, why we were not concerned and so on. But anyway, I will not put names, but I understand that, I mean, it's a competition. Anyone can form a group of people to really address the competition. What I was amazed is why there were none of the Iraqi architects really grouping and presenting a concept. Maybe there is, maybe they did not want. So this is what we would like to know. If there has been 150 entries, how many Iraqi architects were competing in these 150? And because this is the time really to draw lessons, and this is the time to understand the mechanics of this competition. Okay, we won the first prize, we are very happy, but what about the others? The 145, what was the composition of these teams? They were Iraqi architects or not? Urban planners or not? That's my question.
Thank you. Of course, the jury report provides answers to these in terms of numbers and so on. But there's also, it appeared like there was a somewhat difference of views by the major Iraqi architectural firms and experts about the project of this magnitude being offered as a competition internationally. So with that, what's your opinion, Mr. Samir? Should international competitions be held for such architectural, heritage, and cultural important sites, especially in the Arab world? Maybe if you put your arcade hat on.
I mean, yes, to compete or not to compete. I mean, what are the other ways to really gather ideas other than instigating competitions, international competitions? I think competing is very important, but also in Canada and in the States, probably in Europe also, there is what we call popular, like people will have to really assess if there is a project somewhere, and this project has to be shown to the people of like Mosul. We are talking about Mosul now, and people has to also give their opinion about the projects that are submitted or presented to them. And this is very important. I mean, how to conceal the idea of competing internationally to select some projects, and how also to present these projects to the community as such, in this case in Mosul, so they can also contribute to really to the selection, because this is very important, and it's not an easy task. It's very complex, and it takes time a lot. Usually, we know very well that in the Arab world everything is done in a rush. So let's do it. And also, there is some political agendas behind any competition. I'm not saying this for this competition, but usually there is the need to reconstruct quickly and so on. So we need to learn from all this really, and to to put a different, in my opinion, from my experience, a more elaborate roadmap, really, to make sure that any project selected to be constructed for the reconstruction should really meet the population critical views and ideas, and really be accepted by this population. I think this is my opinion on this.
Thank you. And I think we will need a separate workshop to explore this dimension in more details with, perhaps we can raise it at some recommendations for future competitions.
That will be great, really. That will be great. A lot of things to be done, to be said here.
Absolutely. And I think it needs a dedicated workshop in its own right. We have a hand raised from Mr. Murtada Al-Musawi. Mr. Murtada, the mic is yours.
Good evening, everybody. When I look to the sections which Clement has showed to us, especially from the external view, in fact, I don't feel that this is Al-Nouri Complex. I feel that the name is gone. It is okay, a mosque with a lot of ideas there from the view, external view. But as Al-Nouri Complex, I feel it is gone. Al-Nouri name. Now, I don't know, I'm not architect, I don't know how to do it. But I'm sure there's a way to show that, to keep that people, when they look from outside, they still feel that this is okay, this is Al-Nouri Complex, okay. What happened is happened, and what is possible is possible, what is not possible is not possible to do it. But at least to give impression to the people that, okay, this is Al-Nouri Complex. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murtada Al-Musawi, for that input. Clement, would you like to mention something?
I think, sir, your question is very valid, except the fact that you know, when you have a competition like this, you can either re-question and do as it used to be, but then it's a lie, and it's a fake lie, trying to rebuild as it used to be, or you try to reinterpret it and convince yourself that it's more honest to kind of build with what was there at first and how you can embrace it into the future. And in our case, we decided not to simply reconstruct as it is, but to reconstruct the balance between as it was and as it could become. And that's the point of our project. And I think our images are maybe a bit too strong in that sense, and maybe they could be less carrying the contrast, but we wanted to show the contrast as the primary idea of our project.
One final question for you, Clement. Sorry, it came, which is, could you say more about the different materialities of the project?
Yes, the materialities of the project are basically the materiality we found that were local, and it's about concrete, it's about brick, and it's about ceramic, and we wanted to just consider simple span and find local knowledge to build the future of the project. So we didn't want to superimpose a new product, but more to engage a relationship with all ongoing pre-existing tools and means of fabrication, and that's the point of our project. And I think we are willing this project not to be seen.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, we just didn't want
You're willing for the project not to
be seen as a wrongly futuristic and out of context. We wanted to address to the context at first.
Thank you. So I thank you again for the interesting presentation, the excellent discussion, the frank assessment, and the lessons and the feedback. I'll give you a last remarks to you, really, to let us know what's next for you as a project team, as individuals, and how you will continue this journey, hopefully to help the city of Mosul in the future and other architectural heritage and cultural heritage sites in Iraq. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. I would like to thank you and UNESCO and everyone that organized this competition. It was a journey, and as you know, a competition is you lose control and you lose comfort zone. So I think our project is in this direction, and we appreciate all of the effort for this organization to happen. And as a team, as I said, as a collective, we are going to continue our efforts to scan other opportunities to think. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to take your question to also what Clément said about continuing these efforts, definitely. But I would like to highlight also another dimension, which is research and development. And I think one of, personally, one of my goal actually is really research and building a research center for the Arab world. And this is what now I'm trying to do. I tried to do it in the Gulf, in Dubai, in Doha, and also in Kuwait lately. But I think maybe the timing was not very good, or maybe acting on an individual level was not enough. But I think this is what is needed today. We have a huge lessons of architecture embedded in our heritage, urban architecture in the Arab world. I'm speaking the Arab world from Iraq to Morocco, the Middle East, the Gulf, and the North Africa. There is a lot of lessons to be learned, research to be done, but also, unfortunately, wars and social problems and also huge developments are not giving us enough time to really preserve the heritage, which is mostly gone, but also in more in a critical way, the time to research these architectures and these urban planning. I hope that soon we can have a research center in the Arab world that will really cater for all these themes and research items to be done.
Thank you very much. And once again, thank you to our audience. Thank you to our panelists. And with that, we conclude this fifth seminar in this 5 seminar series on the design competition for the Grand Al-Nouri Mosque that was hosted by UNESCO and supported by the government of the UAE and other partners. We look forward to all of you joining us tomorrow for 2 seminars, one of them looking at the 3D reconstructed models of the Al-Nouri Mosque and some of the other architectural heritage sites that are being looked at, churches and old houses. And also we will have the UNESCO senior management team, project management team on the Revive the Spirit of Mosul, joining us to have an interesting presentation on the project, its progress, and answering some of your questions. With that, I thank you again very much and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.